them that much at all. And obviously you can see why Stolarz would be happy with it. It's the longest contract he's had since his ELC. Of course he's going to love that kind of security.
Yeah, fans in Toronto love getting a deal on a guy. It puts him in a good position to earn their favor on top of his great year last season. So I'm looking at the cap page. Here I'm on cap wages right now. Next year, him and Joseph Woll will earn a combined $7.4 million, which I believe is about 19th in total cap hit in the NHL right now. This year, it's $6.1 million combined. Going into this year, it's like, God, they have a cheap, wonderful goalie tandem. We think. What do we think? What do we know, or what are you hearing about the potential for them having both goalies fairly soon?
Justin, the only thing we know is that we don't know. And to be honest, I'm not sure the Maple Leafs know yet either. I think they were, this is something that came up pretty quickly, I think. And I think everybody's still trying to grasp the timeline without being intrusive in terms of they asked for privacy and the player requested privacy. And I think people are trying to respect that. And the only thing I can tell you I'm asking is there any indication for when he's going to be able to return? And as we were preparing for our exhibition broadcast on Saturday night, the responses I was getting were simply, they don't know. And so I just think, I think they're hoping for maybe a timeline at the start of the season, just so that they have an understanding of what they're dealing with. But as of the weekend, Justin, the answer was they don't know. And I think too, the interesting thing is going to be, like I saw today, they left Reimer with the Marley group kind of to get some work, and you expect he's going to play one of these two games against Detroit this week. The question to me is, do they sign him, or there's going to be some interesting goalies going on waivers, and the Leafs don't have a high waiver priority here, but depending on what some of these teams do, there's Nico Daws in New Jersey, there's Clay Stevenson in Washington, there's Michael DiPietro with the Boston Bruins. Unless some of these teams are going to keep three goalies, or they're going to do a surprise or make a move, there's three goalies this week at least going on waivers, Justin, that I think some teams are really going to be looking hard at. And, Boston signed DiPietro to a 2-year deal to try to prevent against this. But Stevenson and Dawes, I think, too, are going to be guys teams are going to be taking a long look at. And I think these three teams involved are trying to figure out here, if they're going to do waivers, what's the easiest way to do it, or the best chance to sneak someone by.
But none of them have the experience of James Reimer, and we've seen in the past, Elliotte, that whether it was Matt Murray or Martin Jones, that's been an important thing for the Leafs. So how realistic is it that they're going to sign Reimer, who had the most fun like in a long time at one practice with the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Well, Nick, I mean, like, how do you, like, if you're not grabbing one of these other guys, you're not going out and getting somebody else, how do you feel about, like, you were the one who laid it out, there's 3 back-to-backs in the first month, right? How comfortable are you going to be starting with Stolarz and, say, Hildeby? I don't think they're going to be comfortable with that at all. So I would expect Reimer gets signed, or they go out and they go after some other goalie, like one of these guys on waivers.
And do you have any sense which of those names you mentioned there might be a preference for, or just not sure?
I don't. Stevenson, the Rangers went really hard at him when he came out of college, and they lost him to the Capitals. So I know they were a team that really, really liked him. So Stevenson, to me, is the one that, when I mentioned his name, he's got one more year at $775, and then he's a UFA. But he's absolutely roadblocked in Washington. Like, they've got Thompson and Lindgren. It's a great combination. I know Stevenson is a guy that intrigues a few teams, but I can't say for sure on Toronto.
All right, moving on from goalies, you go to goalies?
Yeah, we're good. You want to go to McTavish?
Sure, yeah. 6 years, is it? $42 million. Do you get a sense for, was there a concession on either side to get that done? What movement had to happen to reach that pretty reasonable deal for both sides?
I think once the Ducks got to 7, it was going to happen. That's my sense, Justin, that Anaheim just had to get there. Nick, Pat Verbeek as well as anybody in the league would, or anybody in our business would. And I think at the end of the day, this is a huge year for the Ducks, and Verbeek and his lieutenant, Jeff Sullivan, they're very fierce negotiators, but I think they realize, you look at it today, he's on their second line center. I think he's got Gauthier and Granlund on his wing. This is a big year for the Ducks. Big year. I think everybody realized it didn't make a lot of sense to keep McTavish out to the start of the season. And hey, $42 million, it's great for McTavish, and it's not a back-breaking deal. Aside from Trouba, who they brought in there, the biggest contracts they've given out are $7 million now for McTavish, Terry, and Granlund. So it's not like it blew up Anaheim's salary structure either. And I just think once they got to 7, McTavish was like, okay, I'm more than this.
Yeah, the general feeling I got over that negotiation that the number started from McTavish at 8. So I'm with you. I think it's a pretty good deal for Anaheim. I'm actually kind of surprised that perhaps there wasn't a team out there that would offer sheet him, because I think at around 9, even if it was for 2 or 3 years, it would have cost a first, a second, or a third, which I like McTavish a lot. I would have given up a first, second, and third for him. Based on what we saw last season with Edmonton and St. Louis around Broberg, were you surprised that teams are still reluctant to go down that path?
Yes and no. The only reason I would say no, Nick, is that I know teams are terrified of that Gavin McKenna pick this year. There's, there were some teams that looked at that and said, what if we crater, or what if we're not that good? And, we've given up the number 1 pick that becomes Gavin McKenna, or the defenseman who's really rising up the draft charts right now. I know some teams are really scared of that. The one team, Nick, that wasn't afraid of it, but I don't think they seriously considered this one, was Carolina. Like they almost offer sheeted Bouchard, and they basically did offer sheet Keandra Miller, but worked out a trade for him instead. I'll say this though, someone did tell me in the last week there was a team out there, and I haven't figured out who it was, that was trying to reacquire one of their draft picks to think about an offer sheet for McTavish. And I thought my first immediate guess was Carolina, but they said that wasn't the team. So somebody did at least consider it. But Nick, I think the fear of that McKenna pick has terrified a number of teams out there. And the other thing too is the Ducks, by the way, they made it clear they weren't doing bridge here. They were always doing terms, so that made it a bit of a longer conversation.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about. Just in general, I have been looking at these guys who are legitimately great players, and I'm not so sure about the commitment to term all the time. I understand that people like security and guaranteed money and all those sorts of things. McTavish had 22 goals and 30 assists last year at 22 years old. His ceiling is to be, an 80-point, 215-pound centerman. If he goes 3 years, 4 years, he could make